Hello! Welcome to episode 101 of Levels Plus Whenever. We're in the big time. We got 3 digits now. Unicorn Overlord, I think I'm going to write something versus talk about it, because I can't remember anyone's names or the names of mechanics. And it was just like 7 minutes of me going, I like this character, let me look their name up. And it's just like, no, that's not entertaining for you. It's awkward for me, so we're not going to do that as a video. Instead, we're going to switch gears. I've got a pickup to share. I've got thoughts on what Nintendo's next Direct could look like. And we're going to talk about Tchia instead, because that game is fresh on my mind. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I want to talk about the things that I think could have made me plop that into my top 111. Pickup is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door on the Switch. It's real, it exists, it's an actual thing. I have a hard time believing that I have this game in my hands once again. I thought after I sold the GameCube one and the prices went astronomical that I would never have Thousand Year Door again. And yet here we are. I'm excited to play it again. That might be the next game I actually play. I want to see how they've streamlined a few things. I want to celebrate Vivian being a trans character in this game properly in the localization this time. I want to remember the good things about Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door that I really enjoyed once upon a time, where it was in my top 50, 100 games list. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's talk about Tchia real quick. Let's talk about that game. Wonderful game. It is a superb action-adventure game for the PS5, PS4, and I think Steam. And it's coming to Switch this summer. It would be interesting to see how that port does. In terms of how it executes things. Because I think the PS5 did quite well with the visuals. I think it's a very nice looking game. It has a very good style to it, and it throws a lot of objects. There's a ton of trees and stuff. I am curious how well the Switch is going to be able to handle the scale of all of the trees and plants and animals that are in that game. So the short version of the game is that you play as Tchia, and she is a young girl growing up in a fictionalized version of the new Calcedonia island chain. You get to explore several of the islands in the game. You have an event happen that separates you from your father. And you are left on your own to try to find your father. I'm being incredibly vague because I don't want to ruin the story. The story is not the main reason you play this game, but it still sets up stuff. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more when I get into my critique of the game. But for now, I want to talk about what it does extremely well. And what it does extremely well is exploration. It has a superb sense of discovery, wandering, and journeying around with many different ways to do so. Tchia has a boat that she gets pretty early in the game, so she can sail all over the place, look for clams underwater, as well as sunken treasure. When she's on land, she can use trees to help springboard her around. She's got a couple fast travel options at docks. But the big thing about Tchia that sets it apart is that she has a gift. She has the ability to soul link into objects and small creatures. So she's able to jump into a rock and roll around, or she's able to jump into a bird and fly. And she also has a ukulele that she could play soul music that allows her to do certain things. So she can summon animals so she can jump into them. She can change the time of day. She can affect the speed of her boat, although that's a pretty late game one. She can make plants appear that help you with particular tasks. And all of that comes together extremely well to make a very fulfilling gameplay loop, especially since there's so much stuff to do and find. Tchia has hundreds of customization options. Hundreds of them. And they are scattered all over the place. And it was a lot of fun going through the game and trying to find all of them. And I did. I got every single customization option. Took quite a while. But it was a good feeling. It was fun. It's the type of game that loop feels good. You fight a couple different types of enemies. That's not the focus of the game, but they're there. And you don't do it in a conventional way. Tchia doesn't have a regular attack when she's in her human form. You have to jump into things and then soul throw them at enemies to attack them. You have a slingshot, but it doesn't really help with enemies. It's for mini games, and if you want to try to get something to stop for a second, so you can try to soul jump into it. So you have to jump into like lamps or oil barrels and throw those at the enemies because they're made of cloth, which is just a really cool design aesthetic. Or eventually you'll get soul music that lets you become a folklore creature that can throw fire, or have a plant that gives you an explosive plant, which is all really cool. Stamina in this game is really well done because it's your health and it's controls some of your tasks. You have a separate soul meter, so that doesn't affect your ability to jump into animals or objects, which is just a nice counterbalance. So that way, like if you fall down a hill, for example, you will take stamina damage, and if you run out, then you go to a campfire or save point, and it's kind of like it's not a very big punishment if you quote unquote fall unconscious, and that's basically how your life works. And if you do climbing or swimming underwater, that is also your stamina meter. It's very effective. I like it more than Zelda's take on the stamina, a lot more, because I think it just works with the whole mechanics of how the game works. The controls are a little stiff at points, but it doesn't really detriment the game. You can get some really good flow going by, like, you could leap from a tree, and then if there's a bird nearby, you can soul jump into it and then just start flying. And it's pretty seamless. It's really well done. The music is fantastic. The voice work is fantastic in native languages, and it's well done. There's a lot to like about Tchia. The thing that I think holds it back is the storytelling and some of the character dynamics. Tchia falls in love with Louise, a girl that she meets on one of the islands that she explores. But the way that the game shows this, and this is a really good example of how the storytelling in this game works, is, we'll start from the beginning. You, as Tchia, walk into the village, and you are shot at. And that is how you meet Louise, because her mom is the leader of that village, and she is trying to scare off a potential attacker type of thing, but then she realizes, oh, you're just a kid, you're probably not going to cause harm. Can you help us with something? We're trying to have a feast and we can't go get something because we are in a rivalry with another village. So you see Luis in like the window during this conversation. You go do that task. You come back, and then you have an opportunity to cook with Luis, and you prepare the food, and then you get to play your ukulele at the concert, and then that ends. And then Luis wants to talk to you. Luis has her own fast travel mechanic where she's able to just go from here to another side of the island instantaneously. And the game doesn't really tell you that she has that. So, like, after the concert, she's like, I want to show you something. And then she completely vanishes from the village. And you have to look at your map to figure out, oh, she's now on the opposite side of the island, but the game just drops you, like, right after that conversation. There's no time change, nothing. Luis just disappears. And they keep doing that with her as you interact with her. You go over to this spot. It's like her photo, like, base, so to say. She does photos, and she likes to sing, so she has a little dock that she sings on when you play the ukulele with her. Then she jumps back to the village. And you're left at the base. You don't go with her. You're forced to go all the way back to the village to complete the objective, which was to get a chicken. And then she disappears. You don't get to interact with her again until the story calls for her to do so. And when the story calls for her to do so, it's back at the base, not at the village. And it keeps doing this with other major characters. And it really is disjointed to me. It made the relationships difficult for me to parse. I think, and Luis is like the character that has the best arc with Tchia, honestly, outside of her dad and the merchant at the beginning, but then they kind of disappear because of plot reasons. And that's really the biggest fault with this game, is that Tchia doesn't get a chance to really interact with anyone in a meaningful manner. I would have loved it if Luis was just around and you could talk to her and build the relationship that way. Dialogue wasn't really a major focal point of this game. They tend to have bubbles pop up above their head when you walk by them, but you have to kind of stay in pace with them to read it. There's a few characters you could talk to, but they say the same thing and they don't have anything really meaningful beyond like game mechanic hints and stuff like that. That's the biggest fault with this game, is that you don't get a chance to really resonate with the characters on a level that I would like. The other thing about this game, and I think it's important to mention it, and this is a little bit spoilery, so I'll slap a spoiler tag on my face. This game's tone is all over the place. I didn't think I was going to be seeing such violence in this game. It didn't express it. And the art style and trailers, very early on, when a story event happens, the secondary antagonist tries to taunt Tchia as he's escaping. She learns her soul jump ability and jumps into his knife and slashes his face, and you see it. It's not graphic in a sense like, oh, you see the skull underneath, but it's like, okay, that's not the tone I was expecting. The aforementioned chicken has to be killed. It doesn't show it on screen, but you have a headless chicken with you for a decent chunk of the game, just randomly bleeding, and it's like somehow become immortal in this process. So you have this gag in the weirdest times of this headless chicken bleeding all over the place in a very serious scene, and it's like the tone just is weird. And the secondary antagonist again has extensive violence happen to him towards the end, and he loses his hand. Same deal. Tchia becomes the knife and cuts his hand off. After you beat the game, you can find that hand and possess it. The tone is weird, because, like, otherwise you are this young girl who doesn't immediately strike me as the type that would do that. And again, I think that's just a characterization thing, where that just wasn't the focus. That wasn't the focus of this game, the emphasis of this game. And because of that, it makes it a little hard for me to love this game, because I had difficulty resonating with the characters in this world, because of moments like that. I think it's got a great villain. I think it's got a really good pacing to it, because it kind of lets you go wander around if you want to go do that, and that's certainly what I did with all the collectibles you can get, which is exhaustive, by the way. There are so many things to pick up that it's fun, but I had to take breaks after a bit, because it's like, I've been picking up stuff for like 3-4 hours. There's also a side quest that I enjoyed a lot, but towards the end I was like, wow, this is still going. And this is where the limits of the fast travel system can be a little bit bothersome. You can't fast travel anywhere. You can only fast travel to harbors, and those are only on the 2 main islands. You can't fast travel to the smaller islands, and the side quest needs you to return to a couple of those islands. So you have to sail there, and you don't get the fast travel for the boat until, like, you beat the game. So it's just kind of like, if you're going to have fast travel, it needs to be more flexible. Having a limited fast travel is really frustrating, when you have to waste time basically sailing somewhere. So that's basically Tchia, is that I think it's a lovely game. Really well done, really opened my eye to New Caledonian culture. I think it's fascinating in terms of the mythological and folklore elements that are in that game. I love Tchia. I think her abilities are fantastic. The exploration was perfect. It's just got some narrative character stuff that I just had a hard time reconciling, and so I can't put it in my top 111. I really wanted to, but I just feel like the flaws are pronounced enough that I couldn't quite replace something else on the list with that game. But it's really good, and I do recommend it. If you are into action-adventure games, or you like wandering around, exploring and finding stuff, you will have a good time, because that's its strength. Let's have a cat intermission for a little bit. Alright, we're back. Let's talk about the Nintendo Direct. This will probably be the last Direct specific to the Switch. I suspect that we will probably learn more about the Switch successor before the next one. And we're going to start seeing things to get us hype about buying a new system. But to round out the Switch for its last year, what could Nintendo do? What would get people excited? That's a great question. And I don't know if that's really their focus. But I really don't know what Nintendo's thinking, and that's usually how it goes with them. I've been pretty good at predicting stuff once in a while. I recently watched a video where I nailed like Xenoblade and Fire Emblem at being the cornerstones of the Direct. And I was like, wow, I did really good on that one. I don't expect to do that today. I I think what would be good is to address what we know and what has been speculated, and then I'll see if I can fill some holes with what I think would be likely, and we'll go from there. So what we know is that there's 3 games that I can immediately think of that we know about that are coming to the Switch from Nintendo. We have Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which is coming out in June, if I remember correctly. We have Pokemon Legends Z-A, or however they want us to pronounce that. That's a 2025 game. And then we have Metroid Prime 4, which has been in development hell, and is probably a Switch successor game, and probably has been keyed up to be a really important game for that system, but could fall into the Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess situation where it's a bridge game where there's a Switch and a Switch successor version. It would be interesting if Metroid got that opportunity, because like I said, it's gone to Zelda more often than not. So from there, we can move into the speculatory part in terms of what people have rumored. And while we were on the subject of Metroid, that's a great place to start, because following the success of Metroid Prime Remastered, there has been talk that Echoes and Corruption are getting a less thorough but still remaster of some sort. And if that has any merit, we'll see it at this Direct. Another thing that's been tossed around quite a bit is a Fire Emblem remake of some kind. And a new Echoes, so to speak. But not Shadow of Valentia, which is Gaiden, and that was on the 3DS. What I have heard is Genealogy of the Holy War for the Super Famicom, which would potentially tie into Thracia, whatever the numbers are. I always get the numbers mixed up. Which was a sequel to that game, if I'm not mistaken. And then Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, the GameCube Wii ones, which I think would be more of a remaster than a remake. Those are the rumors I remember off the top of my head. I don't recall anything else. And so that now we get into like just thinking. What does Nintendo have that could get something at a Direct? What could be expanded upon? Xenoblade Chronicle 3, Splatoon 3, Mario Kart. Those all wrapped up their DLC packages in the last year. Smash, as much as I would love for it to get another Fighter's Pass, is likely not going to get another Fighter's Pass. Engage wrapped up theirs for a Fire Emblem Engage, and please don't do any more. Phil Xenologue was painful. So, what does Nintendo have that they could potentially do DLC with? Well, the big albatross in the room is Tears of the Kingdom, which got no DLC, and I've read that they don't plan to, but if they're going to do anything, it would be at this Direct. It would make the most sense to do it here. There's been some interesting scuttlebutt about a playable Zelda coming up in something. I will not believe it until I have the controller in my hands and I am controlling Zelda myself. In terms of Mario stuff, we could potentially get Super Mario Bros. Wonder DLC, but that game felt pretty complete. But they might have some other ideas that have come up that they might want to try out. As Mario Party Superstars screamed for DLC but never got it. And if we learn anything, Nintendo is more than happy to go backwards to add DLC to something you wouldn't expect way afterwards. Mario Kart. So it's possible that could get a few more boards and mini games added, maybe a couple more characters. Who knows? It would make sense. That game sold pretty well, and I think people expected DLC given the premise. So that would be nice if that could happen. But I think that kind of dries up the DLC potential. I don't see Advance Wars getting DLC. That was unfortunately a troubled game that people thought wouldn't even come out, and then it did, and I don't think it sold as well as it would have if it came out when it was supposed to. So I don't know if that's going to have any continuation. I mean, they could just throw the DS stuff into that really fast, really easy, charge another $20-$30 for that content. But I don't know if they have any interest in it. So what could Nintendo do that is new, that would be a nice fill gap? I'll get into remaster, remake stuff after this, because this is going to be very short. I don't really know. I don't know if they're going to announce a new project for the Switch in its last year. We've kind of gotten a pretty strong hint that that's not their focus. I have a feeling that Super Princess Peach and Endless Ocean Luminous will probably be the last new content that they're going to make that's completely original to the Switch, that doesn't have a basis somewhere else. Could be wrong. We'll have to see. But that's what my heart's telling me, is that I don't foresee a new game, because they're going to want to build the Switch successor library and try to have the same successful launch year that the Switch had, with Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade 2, Super Mario Odyssey, just absolute, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, just a banger of an opening year that I think stands as one of Nintendo's finest launch years. So yeah, I can't see them doing a whole lot. They'll probably surprise me and they'll have something. The most sensible thing that I could think of a new game from an established franchise is Kirby. Kirby just kind of lends itself. I think he's him in North America, but it elsewhere, so we'll use itself. Kirby lends itself to late gen stuff, but Kirby's also had a lot of games already. 2 games that are new, Star Allies and Forgotten Land, and we've also had like 2 remakes, Return to Dreamland and Fighting One, I think is what I'm thinking of. So Kirby makes the most sense in terms of a stopgap type of thing. I can't see them doing something with Mario unless it's a sports game, but they did golf and they did tennis already. And they did soccer already. So I don't, unless they bring Namco in to do baseball again, I don't foresee a Mario sports game. They're not going to do a new Mario Kart on this gen. They're not going to do probably another Mario Party game unless they're that greedy. But I think that would make more people upset than it would win over people. Might get some really obscure remake, remaster of an older Mario game that just Wrecking Crew or something like that. I don't see Mario carrying this direct. I think we'll see Mario in it. I just don't know in what capacity. Certainly not going to see anything new from Zelda. I would be shocked if there was something new from Zelda outside of Twilight Princess Wind Waker coming. Same thing with Fire Emblem. I don't see them making a new game. They might do a remake or a remaster, but they're not going to do a new game for this gen. Unless they do a Warriors, which I would be a little surprised if they went back to Three Hopes and did something with that, or if they did a new one. That would be a bit of a surprise. I guess a Hyrule Warriors is also on the table. But I don't know what... though that would be the only thing I could think of that they would do for Zelda or Fire Emblem, is a new Warriors thing of some kind. So yeah, and then they're not going to do a new Xenoblade. They're not going to probably dust off an old franchise for this system. So yeah, I think in terms of new stuff, it's likely Kirby and Warriors, and maybe a Mario Baseball that's got the best odds. Let's get into the remake remaster situation though. Here we have a lot of possibility because we could pull stuff from anywhere really and have it work, because Nintendo's shown that they're willing to go back to the Super Nintendo and totally remake a game with Super Mario RPG. They've shown they're willing to do it with the GameCube with Paper Mario, and Pikmin 1 and 2. They're willing to show that they're willing to do DS with another code, and Wii with another code again, but GBA with Advance Wars. So basically, they could do anything with remake remasters, and I think Mario's going to probably get something, honestly, because they've been on a kick with remaking and remastering Mario stuff. We've got Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong within 9 months of each other. There's going to be some sort of remake remaster of Mario. I don't know what, but I suspect something. I think. Let me just come up with like 2 or 3 contenders. Mario 64 DS. If they could bring that up to Switch level graphics and iron out some of the kinks in that game, the ability to have proper analog controls would probably make that a redeemable and purchasable item for people. Because that's the problem with DS, is that you had to use the screen or use digital controls, and both were not good. Both were not good. But it would be a great way to port something from the DS up that would improve it substantially, which I think is kind of what they're trying to do with a lot of their remake remaster situations. I don't expect another RPG. But if they were, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga would be the next one, I think. I don't think they jump into Super Paper Mario or go back to Paper Mario on the N64. I think they would go to the next logical leap, which is Mario and Luigi. And then last of the things I think could happen in terms of a Mario remake, remaster situation for this series, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 together. Now, we already got Mario Galaxy 1 with 3D All-Stars, but this would be a remaster, so it'd be a far more significant thing, and then incorporate 2 into it, and it would just be a nice, lovely combination of one of the highlights of the Wii in terms of games. For me, at least. I enjoyed Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 quite a bit. They were, and I'm pretty vocal about not liking a lot of Wii motion control stuff, but those games managed it better than most. For Zelda, we've already talked about the ports, and I don't know what else they could do other than recruit Grezzo to bring the Oracle games into the Link's Awakening engine. But given how much the Link's Awakening engine struggled on the Switch, I don't expect that. I would be a little surprised if they went about doing that. And I don't foresee them doing anything else unless they port up Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask as a compilation, as a remaster set from the 3DS. That's it. That's basically what I foresee with Zelda, because they've covered so many of the other bases. With Link's Awakening and Skyward Sword, and Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are literally right there. Metroid, outside of the rumors, I wonder if Samus Returns could get a remaster on the Switch. I think it would do it well, and if Mercury Steam were involved and they were able to dial back the enemy respawn rate, I think that would be a much better game. If it looked a little bit nicer and had the animation quality of Dread, combined with less annoying enemy response, it would make that game a lot better. Xenoblade Chronicles X could get remastered, but I think it would be more of a... If that were to happen, a remaster would be what would happen to it, probably, because of the fact that it pushed the Wii U to its limits. Like, you had to download an additional thing to make it run better natively on your Wii U. So they could remaster it, improve the visuals a little bit, tighten up everything, and make it a overall smoother package. We talked about Fire Emblem already. The only games outside of that could see the remaster treatment is the 3DS games, and it would be Awakening. And they will probably not touch Fates, because the general consensus of Fates is at least here in the communities I'm in. I don't know how well received it was in Japan. And as much as I think Echoes is the best 3DS Fire Emblem, I don't foresee them picking that one. Kirby's Epic Yarn can make the jump from the Wii or the 3DS with that extra content. Kirby Air Ride would be a surprise from the GameCube. But they've kind of touched on a lot of the other stuff already that I would think of. Pokemon, I mean, there's a possibility of remasters for days. And if they were to do something, that would be what they would do. They're not going to release the next gen. I don't think anytime soon. And we know the Legends game is next year. And it would be weird if there wasn't anything for Pokemon this year. That would be a very unusual circumstance if it was mobile only. So I suspect we'll get some Pokemon remaster of some kind. What that could look like, I don't know. And then we kind of get into like more obscure stuff once we kind of start moving in that direction. Kid Icarus Uprising would be great. Sakurai would love it. It's just Nintendo needs to fund it. Splatoon doesn't have anything that they could really remaster unless they brought the Wii game back, or Wii U game back, but I don't foresee them doing that with Splatoon 3 still getting content. F-Zero? I mean, F-Zero 99 did really well. I wonder if that might convince them to go ahead and do GX. With all the AX content, that would be really nice. That would probably get a lot of people really excited. Star Fox 64 3D could be remastered. Probably the best thing they could do with Star Fox, honestly, is just bring that. Assault would probably also be welcome, because I think that's like number 3 out of all the games, and they're not doing Zero. They are assuredly not doing Zero. Like Punch-Out for the Wii, that could be fun to bring back, add a few more people to it from the history of the series that are not horrible caricatures of other cultures. Next Level is probably not only working on Luigi's Mansion 2. What else? I'll just say that I would love The Last Story to get remastered. I doubt it's going to happen because Mistwalker is extremely uninterested in it. But maybe Nintendo could get somebody else to do it with their permission. I would also love to see the Hotel Dusk games get the treatment that Another Code did, because I loved Another Code. I loved the way that they remade those. And I think Hotel Dusk and Last Window are just as deserving of that type of treatment as well. But then from there, it's like, you know, we're not going to get any more Smash content. I would love Smash content. It's not going to happen. It seems that the spirits that they started adding are also done. So I think unless they're like anniversary from the series mode, I don't think they're going to do anything with Smash. As much as people would love a Melee remaster or another Fighter's Pass for Ultimate, I just don't foresee it. this is just wide open, and it's hard when it's the last year because you can't. It's like you have to start slapping limits on things. You have to start going, this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. This could happen. It's unlikely. Like, that's just kind of where we're at. So I think I'm going to call it there. I'm not going to get into third parties because I don't think they're going to really be covering the last year of the Switch, at least the big ones. Indies and smaller third parties, sure, but I don't think like we're going to see much from Sega or much from Capcom or Konami or Square Enix. Bandai Namco will probably have an anime game there because they always do. We'll call it there. So thank you for joining me on my thoughts of Tchia and what the Direct in June for Nintendo is going to look like. So we'll see you in the nearish future. Thanks again for watching. Take care.